All right, news of the day. Yesterday, Mary Kay Cabot reported at Cleveland.com that the Browns are not interested in trading for Jimmy G. And I thought that kind of sounded like a Captain Obvious report, simply because I have believed all along here that they feel like they're ready to go with what they have. They also, she had some interesting nuggets elsewhere. They never really considered trading for Jimmy G throughout all of that talk of what's going to happen, and they never really. She says the Browns never really considered that. She did say that they would be open to perhaps more discussion about Jimmy G or others if this suspension ends up being a year or more lengthy than 8 games, perhaps if it bleeds into 10 games. Who wants to start on this?
Well, that tracks with everything I've written and said, that they were never interested in Jimmy G. That goes back to the combine, that they felt like that wasn't really much of an upgrade over Baker, what they already had. And why would they do that given what they'd have to give up to get him, and then what they have to pay him? But, I think this is really just a report based on the fact that the 49ers have told Garoppolo's camp they can go out and seek a trade. But I think the last thing you said really is the most important. The Browns are basing this. They signed Jacoby Brissett under the assumption this is going to be a short-term suspension.
Right.
They can withstand a short amount of time. That's what we started the show with. If this goes the other way, if this is a year, if it's indefinite, if it's a really big number, I think at that point you have to go back and revisit all of your options. I don't think anybody is comfortable with Jacoby Brissett as a starting quarterback on this team for 17 games.
And they would certainly then open that discussion to Jimmy G.
I think
because
you have to.
He's the best available guy out there.
We talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think you have to at that point.
That's probably the position that they're in the weirdest spot with as far as what to do. You just don't know how to address it until you hear what this ruling is really if you're the Browns, because that's a big investment if you're going to do that, if you're going to go that Jimmy G route. He's got a lot of money, or you want to go cheap and get some a free agent in here who has got some experience and, Mike Glennon, oh God. Or Rosen or somebody like that, and, that maybe that does make more sense, but again, it all depends on if he's gone for a year or not, and they're kind of in a holding pattern right now.
I'll tell you what, this just shows me that the Browns are all in on Stefanski and Andrew Berry, and no matter what happens, they will be back next year.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, maybe not.
This is the Haslam's we're talking about.
But yeah,
I think
because of the situation. If
Yeah.
Watson ends up missing 10 games, I don't know how you move on from Stefanski. I don't see that.
When they want to make the move, I think Jimmy Haslam said, "Listen, guys, you good. This is what we wanted to do. We good. Don't even worry about it."
Yeah.
And every single quarterback that they continue to talk about bringing in, they're like, "I'm good. No Garoppolo.
Yeah.
I don't really want these other guys." They're telling me, even if you go 4 and something, they are looking at this, and they came into it thinking, "Oh, this is a red shirt."
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, red shirt. And I know it's
4 and something might open that box.
I hope you're right.
I do too.
Because I really like Barry and Stefanski, and I think they finally have it right.
You never know with Jimmy.
I will just tell you, when Baker got hurt in week 2, could you imagine saying in week 2?
No, I'll give you that.
In week, but he's hurt. He got hurt. There's no way they're going to move on from him at the end of the year.
Let me say this, guys. A couple of things. First of all, the reality is that outside of Garoppolo, unless there's somebody I'm just not seeing, there's nobody better than Jacoby Brissett, right? I mean, outside of Garoppolo,
no, it's July,
right?
It's the end of July.
There's no free agents better. There's nobody on the roster better.
The party's about to start.
I don't know who else they could trade for. It's not like there's another team that has 3 good quarterbacks.
No.
So if it's not Garoppolo, it's Brissett. Those are the only 2 realistic options.
I guess the one thing you could do is you could work a trade for someone else's backup.
I mean, honestly, what
possible.
you would do.
But how many backups are even better than Brissett in the league? Not many.
Are we talking 6 to 8, or are we talking a full year?
That's the question.
Yeah.
Full year, I'm going after Garoppolo.
If it's a full year, honestly, I call Ryan Fitzpatrick and say, hey, you want to run it back one more time?
I guess.
I really would.
Yeah.
To me, he's better
I don't know that he's any better than Brissett at this point.
Between that and Josh Jobs, we'd have the smartest.
Yeah. And a Harvard guy and a NASA rocket scientist.
And the Ivy League on the sideline and the
I do think the tricky number actually is 8, right? I think if it's less than 8, you're just going to stick with Brissett, obviously.
Yeah.
I think if it's the full season, you got to try to get Garoppolo. But if it's 8, it's kind of in the middle, because the difference between Garoppolo and Brissett over 8 games could be 1 win. Right? It could be 1 win. And that 1 win ultimately could be the difference
between making
the playoffs and not.
I like
that. Makes it tricky. If it's 4 games, you got to stick with
Someone
Brissett.
floated an interesting. I got a text yesterday from someone who's been following this from the beginning, and I hadn't thought of this. I don't know that anybody had it. I hadn't heard an uneven number.
That's what I was just about to say. Why is that 3?
I got a text yesterday that said, wouldn't be shocked if it ends up being 9. And I was like, wait, why?
Yeah.
And they said it ends up being more than half. And I hadn't thought of that before.
Right.
And I don't know
why we
first
always say
reaction
even
was,
numbers. It's weird.
Because that's the way our mind works. It's
Yeah.
easy to go 2 to 4, 4 to 6.
Yeah.
And usually they are even numbers, but
They
we have
have
seen
been.
3-game suspensions.
Yes.
So I know no one's really considered that as a possibility, but I guess 9, nothing's off the table.
Throw it in the mix.
What are we
idea.
saying?
No
Nothing's off
idea.
the table.
But you're right, it is really bargain basement shopping right now for the
Yeah.
quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It's like going through a grocery store right before a huge storm and everything's real picked over. And now we're just like, I guess Josh Rosen? I don't know. That's what it feels like.
Could we get Phillip Rivers out of retirement?
Yeah, exactly.
Could we get Drew Brees out of retirement?
Where's Andrew Luck? Anybody have Luck's number?
Actually, Drew was mentioned as a guy who might, when NBC kicked him to the
Yeah.
curb, that his name was mentioned as a guy that
Yeah.
would be out there and perhaps, maybe. If I'm Drew and I'm looking at the roster, I would say
I would
I'm going to come back. That's the team
I
I'm
would
going to
think
come back with.
any quarterback that's not currently a starter in the NFL would want to play for the Browns.
Why
I mean,
not?
it's a good roster.
Why not?
I think Kevin Stefanski doesn't want a new quarterback.
I agree. I think you're right.
He wants to show people that this is what he thinks of himself as the quarterback whisperer. That's his forte, right? And he wants to come out and show I'm able to call great plays. I'm able to get wins. I'm able to move the ball with a guy that people don't think is very good
Yeah.
or a backup. And I think he wants a chance to prove himself.
And guys, what was the Browns' record last year?
9 and 8.
8 and 9?
8-9,
8
right?
and 9.
Is Jacoby Brissett? I know that Baker is better than Jacoby Brissett. Nobody's debating that. But isn't Jacoby Brissett as good, if not better, than the Baker we saw last year?
Well, the one we saw last year,
Yes.
Pro Football Focus, I think, had him ranked 14th among qualified quarterbacks.
Brissett.
Brissett.
Oh, yeah,
Brissett.
right.
So, yeah, I mean, by their
that's what
metric,
I'm saying.
not
Baker
that they're
was
the
like
Bible,
26.
The
but-
biggest difference, Brissett won't turn the ball over like Baker
That's
did
it.
last year.
And you know what?
That's
I
it.
think for Stefanski, that's all he's asking for.
With
That's all
this
any head
roster,
coach
that's all
is
he
asking
needs.
for.
Yeah.
Don't give the ball away.
That's right.
When you've got a defense that's definitely on the rise, and they certainly were they were better last year at the end than they were at the beginning.
Right.
Just don't shoot yourself in the foot.
Right.
I understand the Bengals weren't playing anyone, but go back and watch Case Keenum at that game at the end of the year. That's what they wanted all year long. He got the ball out quick. He was decisive with where it goes.
Yeah.
He was running the system that was put in front of him.
Should've kept playing.
I
Should've
think,
kept
and
playing.
now this is hindsight. I'll throw it out there and see what you guys think of it. Had the Browns decided when it was obvious, and I don't know that it was obvious in week 3 or 4, but at some point it was obvious to everybody watching, this isn't Baker Mayfield. He's not good to play. If they would have put Case Keenum in at that juncture, I think they make the playoffs. And I use the reason I'm saying that is because we saw what he did when he played. We saw what the backup quarterbacks were able to do in games where Baker wasn't there. Stefanski's system, and Case ran it perfectly, I thought. I really think that they could have beaten some of the teams that those narrow losses.
The Raiders.
And all
on
they
Thursday
needed was
night.
one more win to
Yeah.
be really in the mix.
Well, I think
and
they
two
need
more
two more to win the
Two
playoffs.
definitely got them in.
I don't think they would have won 2 more games.
You don't?
I don't. I mean, I don't think Case Keenum is that much better than Bad Baker. He might have been a little, but I don't think he's that.
I think
I
in
never-
Stefanski's offense, he was.
He can keep it on the rails.
I ain't never seen Case Keenum throw no 4 interceptions. You got to think about it.
Yeah, but
man.
how much has he played to throw for it?
Well, I'm just saying.
Well, he had a body of
he
work
had
in
a- he
Minnesota.
played. I mean, he
Played a
got
lot.
to an NFC
Let's look it up.
championship game.
And quite frankly, I thought he was pretty damn
He
good.
had one really good year in Minnesota.
he did.
And for
as a
me,
starter.
when he came off of the primetime game against Denver, they were running the ball with Dearness Johnson.
Yeah.
He got the win. They come back next week against Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh didn't do anything really to win that game. The Pittsburgh kid,
No.
Ben was shot. They couldn't throw the ball, and I'm like, all you need is a couple more plays to get that done.
Both Pittsburgh games.
Both Pittsburgh games.
So, I mean, if you just get those games,
But you know
you're
what?
in the playoffs.
But the whole point of last year was figuring out what you had in Baker and whether or not you could give this man $300 million. That was the
Right.
whole. That's a huge reason that gets overlooked. Everyone's like, why did Baker play? Why didn't they sit him? Well, they're trying to make a decision on him. They're trying to figure out.
yeah,
how
but
much
you
he's
want to
worth.
judge him when he's at his best.
Yeah, can you make
You
a
didn't have that
decision?
time. You
Right.
didn't
No,
have
I know
time to
you
do
didn't,
that.
but
So
and that led us to where we are
and
today.
That's exactly.
By
it.
the way,
That's why
Case
you are where you
Keenum,
are.
the last 4 years, 32 touchdowns, 21 picks. That's not.
Better
No,
than Baker.
He had 1 year.
I don't know about that.
The last year? Last year,
Yeah.
Baker.
Well,
Last year's Baker.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a better percentage than last year, Baker.
Yeah,
Sure.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I do think that Case would have given, and we have the benefit
Well,
of the
yeah,
results.
we'll never
Hindsight's 2020.
No, we were saying it
But
then. People were saying it then.
there were a lot of
there
people
were
saying it
I mean,
then.
I know I was. I was like, I
Yeah.
did not want
Case
Baker
Keenum's
playing.
not
I
very
saw
good.
him.
I didn't
Here's the reality. Even if they would have made the playoffs, it wouldn't have mattered. They wouldn't have won in the playoffs. You're not winning with Case Keenum at quarterback.
How do you always have losing in the hypothetical playoffs
You're
last
always
year?
losing in the hypothetical playoffs.
Yeah, well,
if you have Case Keenum at quarterback, you
remember,
don't win with guys like
you
that.
still
in the
have
playoffs.
really good pieces, and this is still the team that beat the Bengals easily.
And I
I
still
know
would have liked
that,
to have gone to the playoffs.
But
That
the
would have been
bottom
fun.
line is all the teams in the AFC that are going to be in playoff contention also have really good roster. We keep saying the Browns got a great roster, which they do, but so do the Bengals, so do the Bills, so do the Ravens, so do the Chiefs. So do the Chargers.
Look out west.
They've
Everybody
all
out
got
west
really
now.
good
I
rosters.
understand, but as
so
an
the only
NFL
way to compete is to also have a great
as an
quarterback.
NFL fan, I'm still pro playoffs, though, even if we go and lose.
I agree.
2 years in a row,
I
for
would
the
much
Browns in the
rather
playoffs,
go
I'm all for
at
it.
10
I
and
agree.
7
Yeah.
and lose in the first round.
I agree.
So
I
it's
just don't
worth
buy
it.
the Keenum would have gotten there, but we'll never know.
I think the one thing that we consistently miss, we talk about the quarterback and we talk about the roster all the time.
Yeah.
But your coach has to, coaching counts. Bill Belichick, we talk about this AFC, he went to the playoffs with a rookie. And no-name running backs, and I don't know who the heck they got at receiver. But all I know is they put 40-some-odd points on us up in Foxborough. My thing is,
And they're not very good.
and they not that good.
Yeah.
So a coach accounts for certain games. A coach can beat you in a game. I remember, was it 2018 or 2019? I remember the Browns going up to Pittsburgh, and they had Duck Hodges.
Right.
And Duck Hodges.
Yeah, coach makes a big difference.
Duck Hodges walked right up and
he
down the
sucks.
field, and I'm like, what? How does this happen?
Yeah.
You know, Stefanski can account for 2 to 3 games that the Browns weren't supposed to win just by time management, just by scheming something up, or getting out to a good lead and holding it.
Now, what I would say is, and this talk, to bring it back here, this talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, part of the reason I don't think they're going to trade for him, Jay, is because while the Browns have the most salary cap, we put a tweet up by Albert Breer earlier, while the Browns have the most salary cap space now, and there's the tweet, I mean, way more than anybody else. However, they have so much money on the hook for next year that as of now, which doesn't matter that much, but it gives you a snapshot, they're over the cap, the projected cap for next year, even though they're $48 million under this year.
They're projected 12 over the projected cap for next year.
Right.
And not only that, it gets worse. The Browns are projected to be 29th.
Right.
In the hierarchy of cap scale for 2023. And I know everybody's looking at that money saying, why are we sitting on that money?
Right.
Well, I think they're holding their smoke until they know exactly what happens with Deshaun Watson.
Absolutely. Plus,
and the other thing, too, is that cap space rolls over. And they know they're going to need relief next year.
That's right.
So I know everybody's looking at that saying, what are we doing? Why are we spending this money? It doesn't work that way. You have to look long-term as well as in the micro this year.
Yes. Every dollar you spend this year affects dollars
Absolutely.
available
And they are
next
on the
year.
hook for big money.
Right.
Next
Think
year.
about Watson's contract next year, Myles Garrett's next year, Denzel Ward's next year. These are all going way up.
They have 248 committed for next year. I was texting with Zach Jackson, our
Yeah.
great Browns writer. 248 committed to next year on a 208 cap. So you can see where and I've said all along.
Wait, the projection is what for next year?
No, he was saying this year's cap number is 208.
Right.
Yeah.
They have 248 for next year. The
Right.
cap is going to go up next year. We know that.
A lot,
But they're going
not-
to have
still.
to figure some things
Yes.
out.
Yeah.
They have. I didn't realize Amari Cooper was fully guaranteed for next year at $24 million.
And that's a big number.
That's a big number for a guy on the wrong side.
And you can't cut him. That dead money is still going to be on the cap, and you're going to take that hit.
And the point that I've made is like the luxury that they had in paying these guards when you had Baker as the quarterback.
Exactly.
But I don't know that you
gone
can
now.
have guards making $15 million when your quarterback's making 45.
And you know what? That is
they
the
can't
rub
get-
in the NFL right there. When the Seahawks won their Super Bowl, they won it when Russ was still on a rookie contract.
right.
They were able to load up at other positions.
That's right.
When you have a quarterback that's in that higher stratosphere, it changes life. You don't have the luxury to go out and get top-tier players at every position group.
Right.
You just don't.
I think they're going to have to make some really hard decisions on that across that offensive line.
They
for
absolutely
For
are.
people who are terrified of that salary cap number, though, and it just looks impossible to deal with over the next couple of years, if you just look at it, isn't a lot of it, though, hasn't he been smart, Barry, about making these contracts in a way that
Very
you can get
smart.
out from under that last year just by dumping?
Yes, but it's still going to be punitive.
They can't get out of Batonio. Not that you want to, but you can't
Right.
get out of Batonio and Teller next year.
No.
There's really none of their big contracts they can get out of. The biggest contract, the most money they can get out of next year is Nick Chubb, and they're not going to want to get out of his contract.
We'll see how he does.
But there's other guys. You can negotiate sign. They always have ways around the cap.
There's a lot of math that you can do
You
to
can kick
move
the can
things
down the road
around.
and restructure
However,
deals.
Yeah.
in the past, they've had a lot of wiggle room. The
Right,
guy
that's
that I
gone.
trust most on the cap,
Yes.
I spoke with him yesterday, and I said, 1 to 100. 1, you're not worried at all. 100, you're seriously concerned about where the Browns are in the future of the cap. He said, put me at 80.
Wow.
And I said, well, explain that to me. And he said,
David Njoku.
there's certain things you can do. Now, he was mentioned.
That's what he said.
There's certain things that you can do that you can work around. There's workarounds in the cap. He's intimately aware of the way these contracts are structured. And he said, there is relief with some players. But he said, my fear for you and your fan base is you're going to see difficult releases in the future. Yeah. And I said, give me some names. And he goes, no one specific, but they'll be in the caliber of the Chubbs and the Garretts, because those are the ones that would offer you the biggest relief.
Yeah, I mean,
and that terrified me.
There is going to be some of that. That always happens. But the smart teams are able to overcome that by filling, like they're able to, like I wanted them to keep Treader, but they're like, okay, well, we can't keep everybody. So they're filling him with a young guy they believe
Right.
in.
That's
what you got to do.
Why do we think we have Jerome Ford right now when we have 3 awesome running backs? Because he knows.
He brought Ford up as a guy who will likely replace.
He's got to let go.
Kareem Hunt's gone.
He's a good answer to Hunt or Chubb if they have to make that super difficult decision.
Right.
And guys, we all know those decisions when you're in the higher tier cap, those decisions have to be made.
In layman's terms, let me go ahead and break it down for you people. There's a lot of mumbo jumbo. These guys
Mumbo jumbo.
Not really.
You guys hitting you with all kind of Series 7 and financial terms. Okay. Say, for instance, you have bad credit, right? You don't really have a down payment. So you got to go to the car lot, and they tell you what you can get. They're like, yeah, we'll give you this 2015, and you're going to pay $420 a month for it. You know
Don't do it. Don't do it.
You know why you got to do it? Because you ain't got no other options. They don't want to give you the loan, and you got to go to work. So you sign up for it. You get to 2015, you're going to work. All of a sudden, the 2015 breaks 2 years into your lease, right? Into the deal. Now, guess what? You still got a car payment. You still got to pay the bank every month $400.
32% interest.
Or they come and take it.
At 22%. And then if you can't let them repo it, because then your credit takes a hit, and then nobody gives you.
You already
another
have bad
car.
credit.
So hey, it's a repossession. So here's what happens: you usually go ahead and say, you know what, that 420, I still got to pay that. I'm not gonna fix that. Here's what they'll let you do. They'll say, you know what, come on back. We'll let you turn that in, right? Get you in something newer, 2019 and above. All they do is roll that money right on into the other one at a different interest rate. And guess what? That's how poor people stay poor. Well, the Cleveland Browns don't have any credit. They don't got good players. So you know what you got to do for good credit? You got to go out and pay extra for players that are good.
I think they have great players.
Now they do.
Now they do.
Yeah.
Because they went out and got Deshaun Watson at a premium price that they had to overpay for.
Yeah.
So now, guess what's going to happen? If anything happens in the next 2 or 3 years and you still got to pay that tag, you're going to have to be thinking around like, Kareem Hunt, I don't know about this. Amari Cooper, maybe a couple more years after that, we might get you. But that's the price of doing business. Now, can you still go to work? Yes. Is your payment still $400-something? Yes. You're kicking the can down the street in order to get what you need to get done. And the Cleveland Browns have a quarterback. I think they'll cut tight ends.
Let's hope in your analogy that the Browns car doesn't break down.
Yeah. I just hope we can start it.
In this world that you're talking about, if that car breaks down, it's over.
Yeah.
It's a gamble.
And the car
That's
you're
true.
talking about is Deshaun Watson.
That's exactly the car I'm talking about.
Hinges
on
the engine.
That cannot happen.
Yeah, but with
That
Baker Mayfield, the
cannot
quarterback,
happen.
they were still riding the bus.
They were. You're right. But in your scenario, I'm just using
Yeah.
your scenario. If we just roll that over to the Browns, and the same thing happens to the Browns. Oh, damn! My 2015 car broke down. What do I do now? In the Browns scenario, if that car breaks down, guys, we're in for a long, hard run.
You're right. The key to surviving. You brought up the Seahawks. Eventually, they lost all these pieces on defense. What did they do? They did a bad job drafting for a while after that. Who's there outside of DK Metcalf? They don't have
Metcalf.
They don't have a lot of good young players. They have no offensive line.
But in defense of the Seahawks organization, you could see their decline coming at 1,000,000 miles an hour. If you remember, after they won the Super Bowl, they had a number of really good players that were due to hit free agency.
Right.
And they got paid. And all the experts were saying, now you'll watch, not the sudden decline of the Seahawks, because I don't think there's been that rapid decline.
Yeah.
They just went from that realm of being at the top to now being in the place that's really horrible to live for a long time, and that's
the
sort
middle.
of purgatory.
They're the Indiana
you make
Pacers
the playoffs.
now.
They're the Pacers.
Yeah.
They make the playoffs, but they barely
No
make
real
the playoffs,
chance,
so they're
right.
not getting good draft picks.
But now
and it's really hard to rebuild.
But here's the thing: when you look at it, right? Like Tom Brady was I know there's a big deal about he wasn't the highest paid player, but he was paid plenty money, and they still won Super Bowls. Matthew Stafford was getting paid a ton of money last year.
Yes,
and
he was.
Yes, ideally, you want to have a great like. The Bengals are in a great position right now because they got a great quarterback who's not making a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a good spot. But these guys got to get paid because they're worth it.
But you still got to hit. If you get the quarterback, you still got to hit.
And you got to be. Now it's even more imperative. When the Browns were, doing decent with Baker, you could spend more money on other places. Now with Watson, they're not. We're not going to see any more big free agents coming in the next couple of years.
They got to develop.
They got to develop
It's the
guys.
Nick
That's the
Harris's in
key.
the fifth round.
And I'll tell you
That's
why
the key.
I
Tommy
feel
Togiai.
generally good, and this probably will sound like a homer comment.
Yeah.
But in Barry, I trust.
I do, too.
I do. I think that now. Someone told me once that you can be a victim of your own draft success, and what that means is when that draft class is due the second contracts, you now have to really pay
all
real
these
currency.
guys.
Oh crap!
Yeah,
All
yeah.
these guys are good.
There's real currency, and then there's draft currency. And the way to do it early on, and that's why the window is so short, hit with that draft currency, have players that are really good on young deals that aren't going to break the team, but then know that as those guys move into their next contracts, you're going to pay for your own success.
And you have to. It's
in
like,
money.
It's almost like housing markets, right? You think your house is worth $300,000 right now.
Yeah.
3 years later, they could come back and say, "Oh no, that $300,000, 200, 210."
Yeah, not anymore.
Now, if you let your guys go to the second level, right? You got them on your team. You now have to evaluate: was it our scheme? Was it the coaching? Was it the quarterback?
Yeah.
Because guys out there, who's the kid that went to the Jaguars? Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
The Christian Kirk deal. The Cardinals are like, yeah, we drafted you, but you're not that good. We got to let you go.
I can't believe they paid him that much money. That's crazy.
So you have to be good at doing that
Yes,
too.
that's true.
Evaluating who you got.
Yes, and at running back, as we move it along to Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, I think, is going to be gone at the end of this year because you have Nick Chubb. They're not going to pay a lot of money to two running backs. I think Hunt's gone, but I think Chubb will remain.
I hope so. In the short term, I think you're absolutely right. He has to, and he's still at the peak of his prime.
And that's why you have these other young
guys.
guys.
At some point, if the production begins to diminish, that's why, to your point, Ford is sitting there. That's why he was drafted. Everybody's like, why are they drafting another running back?
Right.
Well, he's a safety.
And that's
net.
why they're not getting rid of Dearness Johnson, I don't think, because they may want to keep him to be the number 2 guy next year. We'll see.
All right, McNugget.